Live from SABC studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, welcome to this week's first episode of The Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvoko. 40 years after the murders of student activists Simphiwe Mthimkhulu and Topsi Madaga, the families of the Khosa's two announced they will soon be engaging the NPA to ask the agency to prosecute the policemen who carried out the murders, all of whom are still alive. We speak to the two families as well as other families who have already asked the NPA to do the same to get a sense of just how much progress is being made on these cases. But first, we bring you a status report on the mop-up operations in KwaZulu-Natal after those floods. The Watchdog starts now. The distraught family of an eThekwini municipality employee who was shot and killed while dispatching water tankers to flood victims on Saturday say they live in fear. 36-year-old Phumzile Qata was a supervisor at the city's water and sanitation unit at Ottawa Depot in the north of Durban. No arrests have yet been made. This as attempts to restore water in areas affected by the floods are now at 60%.
This is where Phumzile Qata was gunned down on Saturday. She sustained multiple gunshot wounds to her body. Her family, now living in fear, has asked the SABC not to show a picture of Phumzile or where they live.
Yes, sesaba kakhulu because asazi ukuthi isizathu kube yini sokuthi abulawe ngale.
He says they're afraid because they don't know the motive for her murder. He says they don't know if those who killed her are done. Even the children are scared. Phumzile leaves behind 3 children. Municipal Workers Union SAMWU visited the family and is also wanting answers.
Siyafisa ukuthi okuthenjiswa umasipala esike sakuzwa nangomeya ekhuluma ukuthi bazimisele ukuthi lolu daba.
She says she hopes that the municipality will make good on its promise to intervene in the killing of workers. She says workers will now be afraid to do their work because they fear for their lives, especially in this time of disaster. They're asking the municipality to beef up security.
Isikhathi esilula for abasebenzi bethu nabasebenzi ebusuku basebenzosabela impilo zabo. Siyakhuthaza futhi siyacela kakhulu kwamasipala ukuthi security balekeleleke ngesecurity ezoziphelezela lezi zimoto ezihambisa amanzi kubahlali because ayadingakala kakhulu njengamanje.
Police say investigations are continuing. The municipality has condemned the killing as it moves to restore water in those areas that are still struggling.
Our elderly people cannot be waking up every single day trying to get the water. And us as a youth, we can't move forward because now we don't have water. We need this water not only for bathing, not only for eating, we also need this water to drink. But we cannot be waking up every single day for water. Please, our government, help us.
He says he has to walk 30 minutes to get water here. He says there's no water everywhere and they're asking government to expedite the repairs so that they can have water as they're suffering.
There's been an improvement of about 60% in the inner and outer west region. The central and north have improved by 50% and 40% respectively. We have reported challenges in the south, which is due to the damage to the Umlazi Canal pipeline, which affect water supply in many parts of the southern region. We are hopeful that this situation will be addressed soon, as our teams are currently on site laying a temporary pipeline which we hope will be completed this weekend. The damage to Otongati water treatment plant has affected the supply of water in the entire northern areas. Unfortunately, the entire system requires a full upgrade, and this will take approximately 6 months.
Griselda Lewis, SABC News in Durban.
Despite mobile operations and the repairing of bridges and roads, 62 schools are still not accessible following the deadly floods in KwaZulu-Natal 2 weeks ago. The Department of Education says it will provide about 100 mobile classrooms to schools affected by the floods. This as a short-term intervention as efforts to rebuild damaged schools and other infrastructure continues.
School children continue to bear the brunt of the deadly floods in KwaZulu-Natal. 64 school learners have died in the floods. 630 schools have been affected, while 124 suffered extensive damages. The hardest hit areas are north of Durban, Ntuzuma, Inanda and Molweni. Close to 300 learners have been prioritized to receive learning and teaching support material. Authorities say they've also introduced a catch-up program to recover the time lost during the floods. The Education Department says it's working with the Transport Department to prioritize learning and teaching.
We are rolling out a program of rehabilitation one of our schools' infrastructure. We've just signed off with providers who are going to be erecting mobile classrooms in schools that were partially damaged, in the sense that some structures of the school were working, some classrooms were working, but some had been so damaged that they are not usable.
Teacher unions say although they are happy with the progress so far, they are concerned about the slow response in addressing priority areas such as the repairing of bridges and the provision of mobile classrooms.
Progress is slow, but we know that it's because of what we are confronted and what we are dealing with. So we will continue to monitor, but we still have those schools that are not accessible, and the plans in other schools seem to be very, very slow.
The department is trying, but it's not as fast or as quick as we would expect it to, because at some stage where schools are not accessible, learners are still at home and educators are either reporting at home or at other schools or circuit office. So it's not going as fast as we wish, noting that we are in term 2 and exams are soon to resume. So we are kind of not happy with the speed at which it is going.
The Department of Education in the province says as an interim measure, affected school children are encouraged to attend their nearest accessible schools for now. Vusi Kumalo, SABC News, Durban.
Umgeni Water has warned eThekwini residents to not drink water coming out of broken water pipes. The bulk water supplier says residents should boil water first before consuming it, as it may be a health hazard. The warning comes after Umgeni received reports that communities were consuming water from damaged water pipes. Last week's floods left extensive damage to water infrastructure after the floods that wreaked havoc in KwaZulu-Natal. Umgeni Water senior management undertook an inspection of 2 facilities.
Inspecting the state of water infrastructure after the flood hit parts of KwaZulu-Natal, large parts of the province were left without clean water last week. In some parts of eThekwini, water supply fell to about 50% due to flood damage. Umgeni Water has warned residents about the dangers of consuming water coming from broken pipes.
We're also still pleading to those who haven't seen, please do not go out and get water. We've got different types of water that is coming out. Some of it is wastewater, which means it has not been treated at all. We have water that has been partially treated. It's also not fit for human consumption. So we're pleading with the people that they must ensure they wait for the water tankers, get the water that has been tested.
The community of Kwangolos near the Inanda Dam says it had been cut off from the outside world for a week after roads were washed away. This after 2 aqueducts here broke, leaving large parts of eThekwini supplied by Umgeni Water without water. The damaged Umgeni Water pipe destroyed nearby houses near Kwangolos.
We discovered that there was a damaged house. The stone fell and hit the water pipe and destroyed my neighbor's house.
Leaders say progress is being made to open access to the area of Kongcolosi.
We were badly hit by the floods and some roads are impassable. But we have tried to clear some roads. Things are starting to move around.
Umgeni Water says its water supply to eThekwini Metro will reach close to normal levels within days after repairs to some of its infrastructure. Tulani Msemanga, SABC News in Nanda.
That's how we wrap the KZN stories of the floods. Up next, 40 years after the murders of student activists Siphiwo Mtimkhulu and Dopsy Madaga, the families of the Khorsas 2 announced they will soon be engaging the NPA to ask the agency to prosecute the policemen who carried out the murders. That story coming up next. Today marks 40 years since student activists Siphiwo Mtimkhulu and Dopsy Madaga, known as the Khorsas 2, were kidnapped and murdered by apartheid security police. At a commemorative service held earlier today in Gqeberha, the Mtimkhulu and Madaga families announced they will soon be engaging the National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA, to ask the agency to prosecute policemen who carried out the murders, all of whom are still alive. Well, joining me on the line are Amandla Ngawethu Madaga, who was 5 years old when his father, Dopsy, was poisoned. Nozibele Mtimkhulu was 14 when her brother, Siphiwo, was murdered. Good evening to both of you, and thank you very much for your time. Okay, let me start with you, Ngawethu. What, as families, have you decided to do, and perhaps why now, 40 years on?
Good evening, Budvoyoman, and your listeners. We, both families, have agreed to embark on this journey of seeking justice and not just sitting around folding arms and waiting for the government to do justice. It has been 40 years. What has awakened us, there's a group here in Nelson Mandela called Amakawe Etu. These are friends of the two deceased. They approached us with this approach, and we're quite happy because we've been waiting for this for a very long time, but we did not know how to move about it. Mm-hmm. And fortunately for us, we're also contacted by a group from Johannesburg. There's also a group known as the Khorsas 4 in Johannesburg. I think it happened in Krugersdorp. The Uzbuti Mbulelo Musi, that is the spokesperson of the group. He approached us and he told us that they've already moved in their side. For instance, tomorrow, the perpetrators of the Khorsas 4 will be appearing in the Johannesburg High Court. So through his guidance and other people's guidance, we were able to achieve or to reach a point where we also took a decision that let us form part of this and seek justice in our own way.
Mm-hmm. Nozibele, what has been the most frustrating, things over the years? That which, stopped you or your family from doing this?
Ongubrother kuba ibikuphela kwakhe masubrother obekhona yonke le minyaka abazali bam enganayo i-breadwinner emakhaya kubakho laa mntu kujongwe kuye ozawubeka isonka mhlawumbi phezu kwetafile. Nanjengokuba ebengumntu esicinga ngeli xesha okanye ngaloo minyaka noko naye ebeyawube ephangela esendaweni. Yile nto ke ivisa kabuhlungu uba yonke loo minyaka zange saba naye thina umntu esithi sijonge kuye, esiphila ngemali yenkamnkam nabazali bethu. Le nto ke ivisa kabuhlungu yonke le minyaka uba uyabona abanye ezinye iifemeli ziyaphumelela but why thina ingakhe sibe naye umntu esalathayela esiqinisekileyo uba naye ebeyawukwenza umahluko apha efemelini wethu.
Now, from information that is out there, Amandla Ngawetu, excuse me, on the evening of the 14th of April, you know, they were both, Pure and Topsy were driving to town, not knowing that the apartheid security police were monitoring their movements. The car was stopped at a roadblock that was apparently set up just for the two of them. They were then kidnapped, driven 300 kilometers away from Port Elizabeth to a police-owned farm in Craddock. That's where they were tortured the whole night and later killed. Has any other information come to light in addition to what I've just said?
Budvoye, nothing has ever been mentioned. And to tell you the truth, even what you are mentioning now, we only got it in 1997 through the TRC. You must remember they disappeared in 1982. And only in 1997 that we received the information that you just mentioned now. Other than that, nothing more.
And from your side, Nozbere, from what we know, and I'm reading from what was circulated ahead of today's commemorative event. In 1982, during his last detention at the Sanlam headquarters in Port Elizabeth, Pio was poisoned with a deadly poison called thallium and immediately released to go and die at home. On arrival at home, he immediately got sick and was sent to Livingston Hospital, where after a few days his condition worsened. He was then transferred to Groote Schuur Hospital in Cape Town. In Cape Town was hosted by Di Bishop Oliver, a prominent member of the Black Sash at the time. But on his return from Cape Town, he laid a charge against the state for his poisoning in detention, and there was overwhelming medical evidence that he was poisoned while in apartheid police custody. With the pending court case, Pio became a wanted enemy of the state, and then he died, as I said earlier, while they were traveling, he and Topsy. Is there any other information on your side that has recently come to light?
Poison abazange banikwe amnesty lamabhulu ngokumtyisa kwabo ipoison, azange batshajwe. Yiyona nto ke ngoku evisa kabuhlungu leyo, ngoba bona basahleli neefemeli zabo okokoko. Sasinethemba ke after DRC ukuba ikhona mhlawumbi into enokuba izawulandela. Yaphelela nje apho, azange kuphinde kubekho enye into kuba ngoku kuqala kusuke kuphakame amaqhawe ethu. Ndiyawabulela amaqhawe ethu nokokuba kudala kangakanani ke ngoba sene-40 years ngoku, segqibe 40 years engekho, kodwa ngentshukumo yabo sinethemba ke ngokuba iyawuba khona i-closure apho ke ngoku sawuthi noko ifikelele endaweni. Ukuba kufuneke batshutshiswe atshutshiswe ngenxa yepoison abamtyisa yona.
Okay, now, the last time we got an opportunity to speak to the National Prosecuting Authority about, because everyone has been complaining about the pace at which, the NPA is moving with regard to prosecuting these kinds of cases. But they did say that they have now the pace has picked up. They have employed a number of people who are looking specifically into these particular cases. But take a listen just to. Well, I'm hoping we're going to be able to play that clip from the National Prosecuting Authority when we asked them why these cases were taking a wee bit of time. Take a listen.
What happened is when the National Director was appointed, she immediately conducted an audit of where the MPA stood, how it was addressing cases, and on specifically the TRC cases, she established that these cases were being located in a special unit based in Pretoria, a very small team of advocates, and that unit was responsible not only for all the TRC cases committed throughout the country, but was also tasked with very serious cases relating to terrorism, violation of Security Council sanctions, mercenary activity, crimes against humanity being committed in foreign countries, etc. And under that model, only 4 TRC cases were actually being attended to because, first of all, the advocates were based in Pretoria, but the crimes were committed throughout the country. And every time they needed to attend to a case outside of Pretoria, this would involve travelling to the region. The prosecutors were Pretoria-based, so they're not familiar with the crime environment, the role players in the provinces. So what she said is that has to change. And she then decided that although there will be national oversight of the TRC cases, that is the Priority Crimes Unit, which is part of her head office establishment and reports to her management structure, the cases themselves would be dealt with by the directors of prosecutions where the crimes were committed. So immediately that made available a large pool of prosecutors in the regions themselves, an easy access to the courts, an easy access to where the evidence was located. So straight away, that enabled considerably more cases to receive attention. And then work was done further because we must stress that the NPA is not an investigative unit. The NPA for TRC cases depends on the Directorate Priority Crimes Litigation Unit of the Hawks, the DPCI. They are responsible for the conduct of the investigations, and the NPA's responsibility is to give guidance to those investigations so that the evidence is gathered in a manner in which it will be admissible in court. So we established that there was a similar challenge with the DPCI. The cases were located in a unit based in Pretoria, which was also tasked with the investigation of a number of other very serious crimes over and above the TRC cases. So that initiated a negotiation process with the Hawks, which was dealt with very amicably, resulting in the Hawks also deciding to, in certain cases, regionalise investigations. One would always have to have a head office component for a TRC investigation because much of your material is located in state archives that are based in Pretoria. So having people in Pretoria would then dispense with the need for investigators to travel from provinces. Now, the upshot of that was that within a year, 53 cases were then receiving the attention of both investigators and prosecutors. The process would be, once a case is referred to the DPCI for investigation, at the same time as an investigator is appointed, then a prosecutor is appointed. So the two of them work together on the case from the very beginning. And progress was made. Now, we must stress, these are very old cases. There have been unique challenges with these cases, which we sincerely regret. But at this moment in time, we can't turn back the clock. We can merely try and make amends since 2019 for what should have taken place from 2003 to 27, but unfortunately did not.
A bit of a longish explanation came from a program we had a while ago when we revisited this matter. Just from Amandla to what Advocate McAdam was saying there, does it give you confidence, or has it renewed your hope that at last there has been movement? So as you enter, this a journey now, adding to the 53 cases that he says already have been looked into, do you feel inspired? Do you feel that finally things are going to move a lot faster than has perhaps been the case before?
To be honest, Butvoyo, no, we have no confidence whatsoever in that process that they've just mentioned now. Hence, we are taking a different route. They had the opportunity for the past 40 years and nothing was done. We are not only opening a case against the perpetrators, we are also suing the state for their reluctance and doing nothing, folding their arms, whilst it was the state who committed these crimes. It does not matter to us which state it was, the government of the day or the government of apartheid. It's the same government, it's the same state. Two, one other thing we mentioned as a family is that we are aware from the Mataga family that the perpetrators were granted amnesty. However, as Mrs. Nosbele has mentioned, in the poisoning case of Ubutsipio, no one ever applied for amnesty and no one was granted amnesty. Why are they not moving in that direction? Two, if you can read the news articles of the day and whenever, or from 1982 to date regarding this incident, they will tell you that autopsy had a vehicle where they took his vehicle and planted it into the Lesotho borders to pretend as if, or to give, to pretend as if they crossed the country. When they did whatever they did in Craddock, they never returned the vehicle to the family and see if the vehicle, if the family wanted to do anything. Two, autopsy was working at Old Mutual at the time. He had a couple of years. He had his policies there, which we as a family never received anything, because what they did at the time, when they dealt with him or when they killed them, brutally murdered them, they even erased them from Home Affairs. Even if you were to go to Home Affairs today, you will check P.O. Mtimkul and Topsy Mantaga never existed here in South Africa. So due to that fact, we have decided that we'll also sue the state on those things. So in the process that the professor just explained now, we have no confidence. We're not inspired by anything he just said. It's lip service as it has been happening. If we were to wait for that process of theirs, we will wait forever.
I am in a short while going to bring in someone who already has had dealings with the NPA, just to get a sense from Lukanyo Kalata about how far their journey has gone. But I want to ask you the same question, Nosbele, just from what Advocate McAdam said there. Does it give you hope that this process is going to move perhaps a lot faster than has been the case up until now?
Bendibawela okanye ndinethemba mhlawumbi ukuba ingabheka phambili, njengokuba sinemibuzo singakwazi ukuyiphendula, esiyibuzayo siphelele esithubeni. Umzekelo, ngobani abayothatha ipoison ePretoria? Ngoba yayingeyo poison eyayifumana eSouth Africa leyo, lo-Chilean poison. Poison eyayothathwa ePretoria ngubani lowo? I-NPA mayitshaje abantu aba-responsible for i-poisoning leyo, ukuze sizoxola kuvuyo, ngoba akuzange kuvele kwanyani ngela xesha le-DRC. Cha kwakugqithisisana kunina kuba kwakuthe mabaze ngaphambili. Sishiyeke ke ngoku sinalo mibuzo. Sicinga intoba ke ngoku sinethemba ukubheka phambili uba zizawuvela ezinyani okanye le mibuzo siyibuzayo ingakwazi uphendula.
No, yes, you did. And we're going to take a quick ad break, and we're going to bring into the conversation Lukanyo Kalata, who, of course, and his parents, his father was part of the Craddock 4. They too have already started this journey, and perhaps you can share with us just progress so far, and also give us a sense of the experiences of these families from their encounters with the National Prosecuting Authority. This conversation continues right after this.
We are a nation with a lot to say, a nation with strong views, a nation that wants to be heard. Now you can have your say. After all, it's topical.
Africa may not reach the 70% vaccination coverage target until August 2024.
The United States will reach 800,000 deaths related to the COVID-19 pandemic this week.
Public health experts say the rise in death is being driven largely by unvaccinated people who continue to populate hospital and ICU beds.
Johnson defended his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, saying that new curbs were needed to fight a new variant.
The need for proof of either vaccination or a negative COVID test to enter some venues.
It single-handedly destroyed the Christmas New Year market for much of Africa.
We did it in the face of the emergence of a new variant that was causing widespread concern to scientists around the world.
You're watching The Globe here on SABC News Channel.
Independent and impartial. So I'm Peter Ndoro.
I'm Tsipiso Makwetla.
Welcome back. Well, today marks 40 years since student activists Siphiwe Mtimkulu and Dopsy Madaga, known as the Cosas 2, were kidnapped and murdered by apartheid security police. At a commemorative event held earlier today in Gqeberha, the Mtimkulu and Madaga families announced they will soon be engaging the National Prosecuting Authority to ask the agency to prosecute policemen who carried out the murders, all of whom are still alive. I have on the line Amandla Ngawethu Madaga, who was 5 years old when his father Dopsy was poisoned. Nozibele Mtimkulu was 14 when her brother Siphiwe was also murdered. And joining the conversation now is Fort Kalata's son, Lukanyo, who has brought a court application also asking the NPA to investigate and prosecute the people who are responsible for the death of the Craddock 4 who were abducted, tortured, murdered, and their bodies desecrated and burned beyond recognition. We're talking about Matthew Gwaniwe, Sparo Mkondo, Stelo Mhlauli, and Fort Kalata. Lukanyo, good evening. Welcome. Thanks very much for your time. How has your a particular application progressed, if at all?
Vuyo, thank you so very much for the opportunity. Also, I'd like to send my greetings to the families Yagwa Timkulu, as well as to family Yagwa Madaga. We are with you today in spirit. Well, Vuyo, there hasn't been much that has progressed in our matter. Remember, we went to court last year in July. Since then, the NPA has tried to engage us to ask us to hold our matter in abeyance while they continue to investigate. But then they told us that they were going to give us a prosecutorial decision in December. They missed their own deadline. But I can tell you that since, we have gone continue to engage with them. And it seems that things are getting better now between our lawyers and the NPA, but they're only getting better because of the threat of litigation. It seems to us that now that they can see that we have taken this matter to court, they have no other option but to actually investigate, and hopefully soon they will give us a prosecutorial decision. I can tell you, for instance, Vuyo, that just this morning I received a phone call from my mother to say that a colonel from the Hawks was in Craddock to go and take down a statement from her on an issue that relates obviously to the murders of the Craddock Four. So yes, there is some progress, but it seems that for the NPA, that progress only comes when there is a threat that hangs above them of litigation from us as the families.
I want to play another clip from where Advocate McAdam sort of explains the delays further, but also talking about the impact also of the pandemic on the work that they had started. Take a listen.
The first thing we must appreciate on the TRC cases, they're not current crimes where, you know, the crimes reported today, within 2 days the police can arrest and a suspect will be in court, and very quickly in the High Court where there'll be a trial. A lot of work has to go into these matters to building them. But I am sure that if contact is had with the various persons who've approached the DPCI or the NPA to ask us to look into these 53 cases, they will confirm that they are receiving updates from the investigators who are dealing with those investigations. Where appropriate, the prosecutors also have meetings with the families and their lawyers. But the 53 cases is only part of the news. The country went into a severe lockdown in 2020. Now, what happened is that did slow down investigations where one has to travel throughout the country looking for witnesses. A lot of the archives where evidence was stored were closed for serious periods. Investigators also lost their lives from COVID, driving and contracting COVID while traveling and succumbing to the disease. But in that same period, an audit was done of each and every death in detention. The earliest case was 1963. The most recent reported case was 1990. And those remaining cases which were not under investigation were earmarked for investigation. In addition, because of the public statements made by the National Director, members of the public started taking the NPA into its confidence, writing to us, asking us to look into their cases. So now we have identified currently, and our numbers are increasing on an ongoing basis.
Now, Lukhanyo, I want to ask you, because, I mean, in the case of the courses too, apparently all the people who have been implicated are still alive. What's the situation with regard to the Craddock Four?
Well, with regards to the Craddock Four, is that all 6 of the police officers that had come forward at the TRC to apply for amnesty, to say that they were the ones that had actually murdered my father and his comrades. All 6 of those officers have since died. So, there's no one to prosecute in that case. As you know, former President F.W. de Klerk, who sat in on meetings of the State Security Council when the murders of the Craddock Four were discussed, he also died quite recently. There are, however, some individuals, for instance, Brigadier Joffel van der Westhuizen. He is the one that issued the military signal calling or ordering the permanent removal of Mefi Goniwe, Fort Talata, and Mbulelo Goniwe. He's still alive. He lives just up the road from us in Gansbaai. Adrian Flock, who was in Craddock on the 5th of June to 1985. And then on the 6th of June, he was in Port Elizabeth, where he chaired the Joint Management Center. And then on the 7th of June, from that very same office, that military signal then went to Pretoria, calling for the permanent removal. Flock is still alive. There's a gentleman by the name of Herman du Plessis, who was also part of... well, he's not really a gentleman, but, du Plessis, he's also still alive. So there are still people that are connected to the conspiracy to murder the Craddock Four that are still alive. And we are hoping that the NPA can move fast on this matter so that those people that are still alive can be prosecuted for their roles in the conspiracy and in the planning and in the organization of killing the Craddock Four. The NPA has to move quickly because time obviously is not on our side.
Amandla, I'm wondering what your family's attitude, and the same would go to the Mthimkhulu family as well. What your attitude would be if the NPA approached you in the same manner that they approached Lukhanyo's family, where they are frank, they come and explain, the delays, but stay in touch. Will it remove that the threat to sue the state as well, or you're approaching it that way and no other way?
But Voyo, we are resolute in our approach. We will approach it that way. We are aware, we have been contacted by the Hawks as well, that there's an investigation going on. However, they are telling us that people are reluctant to come forward to, people are not, they can't find the other culprits. And to correct what you said earlier on, most of them, of the perpetrators who actually made that autopsy and spill, have passed on. We all know Gideon Nivot died some time ago. However, what we are dealing with now, as Nosbele said, is that there is the poisoning part that was never touched of spill. I think that is where we are. The suing one, you must remember in our case, they were all granted in the matters, they were all granted amnesty. So there was no one to be prosecuted in the matter. However, in the attempted murder of spill, where by poisoning, we can still prosecute. So we will sue the state either or anyway, and that's our only approach that we are taking, because even the Hawks one is taking too long, and there's no direction, because they do come once every 6 months. They give the same feedback as they gave the last time. So we have no confidence in the other processes except suing.
And does that apply to the Mthimkhulu family as well as well? I mean, are you resolute, as Amandla Ngawetu says, that it's going to be that approach or nothing? Hi, Nosbele, can you hear me?
Nam ndiyavumelana vuyo kunye nongawethu ifikelele ekubeni bangoku mawatshutshise mababanjwe mabagwetywe ukwenzela into yoba norhulumente ngoku athathe indawo. Umzekelo apha ukutyisa kukasiphiwe kokuqala ipoison wabhala echaza imeko yakhe ngendlela bephetheke ngayo ngaphakathi, torturishwa yonke le nto niyaziyo, niyalazi mosibali. Uyithethile ke nendaba yokokuba ngendlela bephethwe ngayo, but uyibhalile nento yokokuba urhulumente uyamfuwisha kuba kaloku ibecinezelwe le ndlela wayephetheke ngayo ngeyondlela right. So nathi ke sifuna uyithatha kulaa ndawo wayishiye kuyo. Sifuna uyithatha kulaa ndawo wayishiye kuyo kuba ekugqibeleni apha wayekhasa ngamadolo uSiphiwe ngenxa yalaa poison, ekhasa njengosana eqaqanjelwa ziinyama. elathe esiswini athi esizinyaweni abesesiswini iinwele ziye zizazisuka nentlonzi zisuka nenyama ngenxa yale poison babenikise yona. So asizuxola nathi side sibabona uba noba bangamaxhego nokuba kwenzeke ntoni nakubo mabatshutshiswe nabo bafanele uba bayasafarisha nabo ngoba thina sisafarishe iminyaka eyi-40 yonke bona bamandi ngoba basahleli neefemeli zabo. So ndiyavumelana ke nongawethu uba apho sikhoyo ngoku isekubeni uba masikhubekeke apho siwe wayeshiye khona. Okwesibini, i-NPA ke Vuyo andikho sure kakuhle ngayo ngesi sizathu. Ikhona ubhuti abathanda ufika apha abathunywe yi-NPA abatshoyo abathi bona bafikelele xa ndibuza into yoba ithini injongo yoba niphinde nibuye ngoku. NPA ikhona into entsha enisiphathele yona. Bathi bona thina into esiyizeleyo kukuvala incwadi. Sifuna uvala incwadi ngoku thina si-NPA. Ndi-little bit confused ke ngoku kuloo ndawo. Njengoba thina sifuna uvula njengoku sifuna uyiqala kulaa ndawo kuthele kuyo after DRC bona bathi bafuna uvala incwadi zabo. So anditho sure kakuhle ke ngoku ngale NPA uba ithini into yayo kule nto uba ingathi singancediseka xa sisebenzisana ne-NPA. Kodwa apha ekhaya inobize kabini okanye kathathu ifuna yonke laa information yabantu wayesebenza nabo uSteve Friends andoni bathi ke bona ke bafuna uvala incwadi. So andiyazi ke bona ke bandawoni ukuvala incwadi ngokweyabo information. Mhlawumbi ke xawusicacisela bhetere ukuba bona xa beyivala ithini le nto yabo because sinayo indawo esingayaziyo ke ngokuba isibeka phi ke ngokubona xa bezivala njengoba thina sifuna uqala.
Lukhanyo, I want to quote from your affidavit where you say you submit that the failure to finalize the Craddock 4 case represents a deep betrayal of those who gave their lives for the struggle for freedom and democracy in South Africa. And the reason I'm quoting that because tonight's episode, what we're talking about, it's part of the conversations we're having this month being Freedom Month, to talk to South Africans from all walks of life about their experiences of freedom. If someone asked you what your experience of freedom has been, especially, the past 28 years, what would you say?
It's been, freedom has ultimately been a betrayal, Vuyo. Betrayal in the sense that our fathers, our mothers, our brothers and our sisters, our uncles, our aunts, our grandparents, the ones whose blood was shed for this freedom, their lives continue to mean nothing. In a democratic South Africa, the people who bled for us, who died for us, they died in vain because the movement for which they gave up their lives has completely forgotten about them. So freedom has been nothing more than just a word, because not only do we not have justice for our father and our brothers and our sisters' lives, we also don't have social justice. Look at the state of education in this country. Look at the state of transport in this country. Look at the state of health in this country. So what did my father die for if this is the kind of freedom that we have to live under under the ANC? A freedom where we pay for electricity, but Eskom switches off the lights. What kind of a freedom is that? You see, the ANC has failed us in all material ways. They started by forgetting. They started by forgetting why they are in those places that they are in, because it was our fathers, it was our brothers, it was our sisters, it was our uncles and our aunts that laid down their lives for this democracy that we enjoy today. And unless the ANC sorts itself out, I am in full support of the Madaga and the Mthimkhulu families. They must sue the state and they must clear the way, they must pave the way so that when the NPA fails, when it fails to prosecute the people responsible for the murders of the Klerok 4, so that we can follow in the footsteps of the Madaga and Mthimkhulu family and sue the state again. So that the family Yaga Victoria and Griffith Mxenge, they can also sue the state. So that the family Yaga Nokuthula Simelane can also sue the state. Because what they are doing is a constitutional dereliction of duty. And we cannot have that. We cannot have that from the ANC. I support the Madaga and the Mthimkhulu families. They must sue the state.
Quick reflections from you, Ngawetu, on freedom, 28 years on.
Hey, with Voyo, I concur with Lucanio in the statement about freedom. You must remember, even though we never spoke to the comrades about these things, all these comrades that he's mentioning, this is not the freedom they were fighting for. This is a different kind of freedom or someone else's interpretation of freedom. We can't be claiming freedom without economic freedom. That is why us joined certain movements, because we're fighting for economic freedom, and we are sure that our fathers were fighting for the same. There is no one who can vote, who can fight for voting powers alone. So nothing has changed, and really, the ANC has betrayed all these comrades that died for the movement. So I'm with Lucanio. This is not the freedom they were fighting for. That is why we are continuing where they left off, and will continue to do so up until we attain economic freedom in our lifetime. But vote.
Masbele? Quick last word from you, your thoughts on freedom, 28 years into democracy?
Iyadanisa man i-ANC yethu esithandayo esivotelayo ayile nkululeko yayilwelwe ngosiphiwo le nkululeko angazange ixhamle yena ixhamlwa ngabanye abantu ayiyo tu ayizonjongo ayiyonto wayelwela le kodwa namhlanje sifumaneka sibulaleka kwale i-ANC yethu le esiyithandayo kunzima kwa ukuba kubekho kwa umuntu ephangelayo kwelikhaya sihlala kulo siyithanda sinjalo sikuyo kule rhulumente wethu asisiwangaso andithi masibekwe endaweni ebanzi kodwa zikhona ithembiso sasithembise ngazo kodwa asikho nesinye esenzekileyo kule nkululeko yayilwelwa ngosiphiwo siyayibona kwabanye abantu kodwa thina asikayiva kule minyaka sikhululekile nake ndinalo ithemba lokokuba xa siphakamile mhlawumbi bifuna siphakamele thina ngokunokwethu sizifemele ngoba inxeba liziwa lisithi inxeba libuhlungu linzulu kuthi kule minyaka mhlawumbi ke i-ANC kukhona ke ngoku izawuphakama isincedise kuba ayikhange isincedise okokoko yile nto ke namhlanje ndizawuthi mna sibulela kwa Amaqhawe Ethu Foundation kunye nobhuti Muti waseJoburg mhlawumbi asikhuthaze naye uba masingahlali masibheke phambili bona aba bekhosa 4 sasekredok ngoba thina nesihlele ebunyameni kungekho nto siyaziyo into siyaziyo ngoba seJoburg kungekho nto siyaziyo but namhlanje mhlawumbi sizawukwazi ngaphezulu nangona ke inhliziyo zibuhlungu kuba xa umane uvuselela inxeba ucinga uba lipholile kanti alikapholi nethemba ke kodwa lizawude liphole ngoba mhlawumbi sizawuya endaweni ngubhuti Mbulelo Musi lona lo sithi ke uzasincedisa ke naye lendlela abayihambileyo uyi-ANC naye asivukeli ANC kodwa siyabona into yoba uyisifeyilile nangona i-ANC yethu asiyibaleki loo nto kodwa siyafuna ke ngoku i-ANC nayo isincedise kule ndlela sizayihamba okanye isisapote ukusibhekisa phambili.
Ndibulele kuwe Nozibele Mthimkhulu, amandla ngawethu Mataka and Lukhanya Chalata. Thanks to all of you for agreeing to come on the program this evening. That's where we're going to leave it for tonight. To join us again tomorrow evening, same time, 8 p.m. sharp. Good night.
Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement.